The scorching coffee splattered across my face and chest, searing through my silk blouse and into the skin beneath. The pain hit instantly, but I didn't scream. I didn't even twitch. Everyone in the boardroom went rigid, as if someone had slammed a pause button on reality. The soft patter of coffee dripping onto the polished conference table was the only sound. "You're nothing but a useless assistant," Garrison roared, his face mere inches from mine as flecks of spit flew from his mouth. "How dare you challenge me in front of the board? You take notes, you bring drinks, you speak only when spoken to." 12 pairs of startled eyes stared at us from around the table. Some looked appalled, others ashamed, but not a single one intervened. No one lifted a hand to help me as I sat there, burned and belittled. I calmly reached for a napkin and dabbed at the dark liquid soaking into my clothes. 3 years of meticulous preparation had readied me for moments exactly like this. I just hadn't expected his real character to explode so openly. I rose to my feet. "Actually," I said, my tone steady despite the sting on my skin, "I think you'll want to hear what I'm about to say." I picked up my phone, unlocked it, and held it in the air. "But before I go on, you should know that everything in this room has been recorded for the last 3 years. The blood drained from Garrison's face as I turned toward the board. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time we had a truthful conversation about the future of this company. Before I continue my story, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting this channel. If you're finding yourself hooked on this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. It lets me know you want more stories like this. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next." Now, back to that boardroom where my entire life was about to shift. My name is Eleanor Merritt. Though everyone at Horizon Technologies called me Ellie, I was 32 years old when the coffee incident occurred with degrees in business and computer science. No one at the company had any idea about. I'm naturally observant, patient to a fault, and possess a memory that borders on photographic traits that made me brilliant at my work and terrible at forgetting wrongs. I hadn't always intended to be an executive assistant. My ambition was to create my own tech startup centered on sustainable energy solutions. But right after finishing my undergraduate studies with student loans looming over me, I needed reliable income while developing my ideas and saving for initial capital. Horizon Technologies was a mid-sized organization specializing in energy management systems when I arrived. The company had talented engineers, but suffered from leadership that lacked vision. I recognized the potential instantly and assumed I might learn something worthwhile before pursuing my own company. Then I crossed paths with Garrison Reed. As CEO, Garrison was known for being demanding. What people didn't say aloud was that he was also spiteful, controlling, and always stole credit for others' accomplishments. He'd inherited the company from his father, though he told everyone he'd built it from the ground up. I became his assistant through an internal promotion after the previous assistant walked out without warning. Later, I discovered she had filed a harassment complaint HR quietly buried. "You're fortunate to have this chance," the HR director told me with a rehearsed smile. "Many would kill for direct access to Mr. Reed." During my very first week, Garrison summoned me into his office and laid things out bluntly. "I don't need you to think. I need you to do what I tell you, when I tell you, exactly how I tell you. Can you manage that?" I nodded and slipped seamlessly into my role. The enthusiastic assistant, grateful for the position, eager to learn. Inside, I was already planning how to use this role to my benefit. For 3 years, I arrived before everyone and left after everyone. I managed Garrison's schedule, his emails, his lunch preferences, his gifts for his wife and his mistresses. I documented every meeting, organized every file, and mastered the art of being invisible in the way assistants often are. Present, but unseen. Heard, but ignored. What Garrison never grasped was that I heard everything, and I absorbed everything. I understood the company's inner workings more than anyone because I saw every moving piece. I knew which clients were frustrated, which employees were mistreated, which innovations were dismissed simply because they didn't originate with Garrison, and I was preparing. During the day, I was the flawless assistant. At night, I was finishing my master's degree in business administration and cultivating relationships with the very people Garrison had pushed away. The first was Vivian Ortega, the former CFO. Garrison had dismissed her after she challenged several accounting practices that tiptoed along ethical lines. I reached out to her 6 months after she'd left, saying I needed guidance for my graduate thesis. Over coffee, I showed her my business proposal. "You've pinpointed market gaps Horizon could fill, but refuses to," she said, clearly impressed. "Why are you still employed there?" "I'm gathering resources," I replied truthfully, "and there's still more I need to absorb." Vivian leaned closer. "What if you had funding to launch now?" That discussion led to countless others. Vivian connected me with investors interested in renewable energy innovations. With her financial expertise and my technical background, we began laying the groundwork for a company designed to compete directly with Horizon, but with a model rooted in sustainability and cooperation rather than quick profits. Next came Rajan Patel, Horizon's exceptional lead engineer who resigned after Garrison stole credit for his groundbreaking energy storage design. I tracked him down teaching at the local university. "I remember you," he said when I approached him after class. "You were always polite, even when your boss was unbearable." "I'm still his assistant," I admitted. "But I'm developing something I think you'll want to see." One by one, I reconnected with former Horizon staff who had walked away because of Garrison's toxic leadership. 6 vital team members eventually joined what we called Project Phoenix, our company meant to rise from the ruins of their broken time at Horizon. We worked in total secrecy for over a year. I continued executing my tasks flawlessly at Horizon, while building its rival after hours. The double life was draining, but each time Garrison demeaned me or claimed credit for my efforts, it only strengthened my resolve. Then came a decisive turning point. Garrison had been invited to speak at the annual Energy Innovation Conference, but had a scheduling conflict with his son's graduation. Instead of missing the event, he sent me to take notes, not as an attendee, but essentially as his errand runner. "Just collect the materials and information," he ordered. "I need to know what our competitors are doing." What he didn't realize was that I had already arranged meetings with 3 of Horizon's biggest clients who would also be at the conference. Clients who had openly expressed dissatisfaction with Horizon's outdated strategies and poor service. The first was Westbrook Industries, which accounted for 22% of Horizon's yearly revenue. "Eleanor," said Diane Westbrook, the CEO. "I was surprised to see your email. Does Garrison know you're sitting down with me?" "Mr. Reed sent me to gather information," I said carefully. "I'm gathering what I believe is most valuable." Over the next hour, I listened as she outlined her frustrations with Horizon. Then I presented what Phoenix Energy could deliver instead. By the time our discussion ended, she was intrigued. "This is impressive work," she admitted. "But leaving an established company for a startup is risky. That's why we're offering a phased transition with guaranteed benchmarks," I explained. "And our team includes the same people who created the technology you currently rely on at Horizon." Similar discussions followed with Global NRG and TerraSmart. By the end of the conference, I had tentative commitments from clients representing nearly 2/3 of Horizon's entire business. When I got back, I handed Garrison exactly what he expected: a detailed report on competitors, presentations, and upcoming products. I also captured his derisive reaction. "This is worthless," he growled, tossing aside my meticulously prepared report. "Next time, I'll send someone who actually understands what matters." I smiled and nodded, knowing that what truly mattered was already unfolding. The following weeks were relentless. Vivian secured our last round of financing. Rajan polished our product designs. Legal finalized the client contracts. We rented office space across town. Everything was set. All we needed was the perfect moment for me to walk away from Horizon. Garrison unknowingly handed me that moment when he scheduled a board meeting to address the next year's strategy. He asked me to create a presentation on client retention, a topic he barely understood but wanted to appear knowledgeable about. I spent days crafting a comprehensive analysis, showing alarming trends in client satisfaction and pinpointing necessary steps to avoid client loss. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was giving Horizon one final chance to fix the same problems that would soon cost them most of their revenue. On the morning of the board meeting, I dressed with deliberate care in a crisp white blouse and a charcoal pencil skirt. I wore my grandmother's pearl earrings for confidence. I slipped a small recorder into my pocket, though my phone was recording as well. Redundancy was a lesson Horizon had drilled into me. The meeting started with Garrison grabbing credit for my presentation, just as expected. Then he opened the room for questions. That's when Bernard Chen, the newest member of the board, asked the question that shifted everything. These client satisfaction figures are troubling. What precise actions are being taken to address their concerns? Before Garrison could respond with the scripted points I had prepared for him, I spoke up. If I may, Mr. Chen, I've included a comprehensive action plan on page 17 that addresses each area of concern. The room fell absolutely still. I had broken the unspoken rule. I had spoken without being addressed first. And even worse, I had hinted that I, not Garrison, had created the report. Garrison's face turned a furious shade of red. "Ellie is getting ahead of herself," he said with a stiff smile. "Those are the recommendations I developed based on my discussions with major clients." "Actually," I said, my heartbeat racing though my tone remained steady, "those suggestions are drawn from data I've gathered over the past year through client surveys and exit interviews." I flipped to the page in question. "You'll notice our three largest clients have voiced nearly identical frustrations regarding outdated systems and slow response times. The plan I've outlined would address." That's when it happened. Garrison snatched his coffee mug and hurled its contents directly at me. The steaming liquid splashed across my face and chest, soaking through my white blouse. "You're nothing but a useless assistant," he screamed. "How dare you contradict me in front of the board? You take notes, you bring coffee, you don't speak unless you're spoken to." And there we were again, right at the moment that would shape everything that followed. I rose to my feet, dabbed at my drenched blouse, and pulled out my phone. "Actually," I said softly, "I think you'll want to hear what I have to share." I turned to the board members, their faces a mix of shock, discomfort, and intrigue. For 3 years, I've worked as Mr. Reed's assistant while completing my MBA and a second master's in sustainable energy during the evenings. In that time, I've identified 17 significant weaknesses in Horizon's business model that Mr. Reed has repeatedly ignored or dismissed. Garrison laughed, though it rang false. "Sit down before you embarrass yourself any further, Ellie." I paid him no attention and continued. "Last month, when Mr. Reed sent me to the Energy Innovation Conference, not as an attendee, but simply to carry his materials, I met with representatives from Westbrook Industries, Global NRG, and TerraSmart. The board chairman, Harold Morris, leaned forward. Our three largest clients. Why would they speak with an assistant? Because they've been trying to express their needs to Horizon for years without success," I said calmly. "And all three have now agreed to move their contracts to my new venture." Garrison's face twisted with fury. "What are you saying? What venture?" I smiled. "The venture supported by Vivian Ortega, the CFO you dismissed last year when she tried to warn you about questionable accounting. The venture staffed by Rajan Patel and the 5 other team members you drove away with your bullying and constant credit theft." I reached into my bag and placed a business card before each board member. Simple, refined, carrying the Phoenix Energy logo and my name. Eleanor Merritt, founder and CEO. "I didn't steal anything from Horizon," I clarified. "I merely built something stronger. And I'm here today not only to resign, but to offer this company the chance to become our subsidiary before your stock collapses tomorrow when our launch and the client transitions are made public." Garrison lurched toward me, but Bernard Chen and another board member grabbed hold of his arms. "You think anyone would choose you over me?" he snarled, fighting against their grip. "They already have," I replied steadily. 64% of your clients have signed with us, effective immediately. The tension saturating the room was unmistakable as the consequences finally settled in. Harold Morris dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. "Why tell us this?" he asked. "Why not simply walk away and let us discover it when it's already too late?" I scanned the table. Because unlike Mr. Reed, I believe people deserve chances. There are skilled individuals in this company who merit better leadership. My offer gives Horizon a path forward instead of certain collapse. I moved toward the exit, then paused to glance back at Garrison, who had sunk into his chair, his face drained of color. "You have until tomorrow morning to accept my offer. After that, we become your strongest competitor, with your client base already aligned with us." I motioned toward my stained blouse. "Oh, and I'll be sending you the cleaning bill. Consider it the first of many invoices." As I closed the door behind me, a wave of frantic voices erupted. Through the glass, I caught their expressions, pale with shock as they realized the so-called worthless assistant they had dismissed had just become the most influential person in the room. 3 years of being unseen had made me unstoppable, but my story didn't end with that dramatic departure. The true challenge was only beginning. As I walked through the office for the final time, employees stared at my coffee-soaked blouse in bewilderment. My assistant, Zora, yes, I had quietly hired my own assistant 2 months earlier, was already waiting at my desk with a fresh change of clothes. "How did it go?" she whispered, handing me a garment bag. "Exactly as intended," I replied. "Call the team. It's time." Within an hour, I was standing inside the new Phoenix Energy headquarters, addressing the core group that had worked undercover for months. Vivin, Rajan, and 19 others looked at me with a mix of eagerness and nerves. "It's done," I announced. "Horizon has until morning to accept our offer, but no matter their choice, we launch tomorrow." Rajan clapped his hands sharply. "At last, no more pretending this company doesn't exist." Vivin, ever the realist, asked, "What was the board's reaction? Do you think they'll take the deal?" I thought about this while changing into a clean blouse in the side room. They were stunned. Garrison was livid, but Harold Morris seemed open to negotiation. He's a pragmatist. He'll do whatever protects the company and his image. The next 12 hours were a blur of movement. Our PR team finalized press statements, legal combed through contracts one last time, and IT prepared to push our website live. By midnight, we were ready for either scenario, Horizon's surrender or our full-scale debut as their rival. I hardly slept that night, not from fear, but from excitement. 3 years of planning, of swallowing my pride, of documenting every failure and ignored opportunity at Horizon, it was all building to this point. At 7:30 the next morning, my phone buzzed. "Harold Morris." "Eleanor," he said, his voice strained. "The board has been in emergency session all night." "And?" I kept my tone composed. "We need more time to evaluate your proposal." I had expected that. The terms were clear. "Mr. Morris, the deadline is 8 a.m. Garrison has been removed as CEO, effective immediately," he said quickly. "We're prepared to discuss a merger of equals instead of becoming a subsidiary." It was tempting, but not sufficient. That wasn't the offer. "Please," he said, and there was true desperation in his voice. "We have shareholders to consider, employees who had nothing to do with how you were treated." I let silence linger before answering. "I'll give you until noon, not out of courtesy to the board, but out of respect for the employees who deserve far better than what Horizon has given them." I ended the call and turned to Vivin, who had been listening nearby. 4 more hours, I told her, but proceed with the announcements as planned. They must understand we're not bluffing. At 9 a.m., our press release went live, announcing the creation of Phoenix Energy and our partnerships with the major clients formerly tied to Horizon. The industry news outlets picked it up instantly. By 10 a.m., Horizon's stock had fallen 18%. At 11:30, Harold called again. "We accept your original terms," he said, his voice drained. "Horizon will become a subsidiary of Phoenix Energy." I allowed myself a faint smile. "Have the documents ready by 2 p.m. I'll bring my team to finalize everything." Returning to Horizon that afternoon felt nothing like my departure the day before. The reception area was silent as I entered with Vivian, our legal counsel, and two of our board representatives. Employees watched from doorways and cubicles, murmuring among themselves. In the same boardroom where Garrison had hurled coffee at me, Harold Morris and the rest of the Horizon board sat waiting. Garrison was glaringly absent. "Where is Mr. Reed?" I asked as we took our seats. Harold cleared his throat. "He resigned this morning, effective immediately." I nodded, unsurprised. "Then let's move forward." The signing took barely half an hour. Ownership of Horizon Technologies shifted to Phoenix Energy. The subsidiary would continue operating under new leadership with a gradual integration plan to reduce disruption. As we wrapped up, Harold asked to speak with me alone. The others stepped out, leaving the room quiet. "I owe you an apology," he said once the door clicked shut. "I saw the way Garrison treated you and others, and I did nothing." I watched him carefully. Why? He exhaled heavily. Complacency. Wanting to avoid conflict. The quarterly numbers looked decent enough that I could convince myself not to intervene. "Those aren't reasons," I said. "They're excuses." "Yes," he admitted. "And now I've lost my company because of them." I studied him thoughtfully. Harold was in his 60s, with decades of industry knowledge and relationships that could still be useful. "You haven't lost anything yet," I told him. "You've gained new leadership. Whether you continue here depends on what you choose to do next." He looked startled. "You're not dismissing the whole board. I'm assessing everyone based on merit and future contribution, not old failures." I stood. "Send me a proposal outlining how you believe you can support Phoenix Energy moving forward. I'll evaluate it like any other business pitch." As I headed for the door, he called out, "Eleanor, how did you do it? How did you work under him for 3 years without revealing your plans?" I paused. "I learned something important here, Mr. Morris. People see only what they expect to see. Garrison expected a thankful, obedient assistant, so that's exactly what I let him see. He never looked deeper because he never imagined I could be anything beyond what he decided I was." "And now you own his company," Harold said, faint admiration in his voice. "No," I corrected. "I built my own company. Horizon is simply an acquisition." In the weeks that followed, we carried out our integration strategy. I made a point of meeting every Horizon employee personally to explain the upcoming changes and the possibilities ahead. Many were understandably uneasy, but others were clearly relieved to finally be free of Garrison's rule. "Is it true what people are saying?" an engineer asked during a department briefing. "That you recorded everything when you were his assistant?" "Not everything," I clarified. "Just the essentials." The room broke into nervous laughter. The transition wasn't perfect. 2 of Garrison's loyal executives resigned rather than serve under my leadership. A few clients who hadn't been part of our initial outreach raised concerns about the sudden shift, but our preparation held steady. We had contingency plans mapped out for every possible outcome. A month after the acquisition, I received an unexpected email from Garrison. The subject line read simply, "We should talk." Ignoring Vivian's caution, I agreed to meet him in a neutral spot, a quiet restaurant downtown. I arrived early and watched him walk in. He looked thinner, and the confidence in his stride had dimmed. "Eleanor," he greeted me, attempting his old authoritative tone but failing to reach it. "Thank you for meeting me." "What do you need, Garrison?" I asked after he sat. He studied me intently. "I misjudged you. Clearly." "Yes," I said. "You did." "I want to understand something," he went on. Was it always your intention to take over Horizon? From the very beginning? I weighed the question carefully. Number. Initially, I only wanted to understand the industry while shaping my own ideas. But the more I observed how you operated, claiming credit for others' work, dismissing valuable insights, driving away skilled people, the more I realized there was a chance to build something better. Using my clients, he said sharply. Using relationships I developed while you were too busy ignoring them, I corrected. Every client who moved to Phoenix had attempted to express their needs to you first. You refused to listen. He leaned in. I want to propose something. This caught me off guard. What kind of proposal? I'm launching a new venture, he said. With my background and your strategic mind, we could create something powerful. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. You're offering me a job after calling me useless. His jaw tightened. I'm offering a partnership, equal shares. I watched him closely, trying to discern his motive. Why would I work with you when I've already succeeded without you? Because I still have connections you don't, he insisted, and resources you might want. I took a sip of water, letting the silence stretch. Garrison, do you know why I recorded our interactions for 3 years? He frowned. Leverage, obviously. Protection, I corrected. I needed proof of how you conducted yourself because I knew someone like you would never accept losing quietly. You'd look for revenge, for a way to reclaim ground, to prove you still held power. His face told me I was right. This meeting isn't about collaboration, I continued. It's about you trying to find a way back in, to sabotage what I've built, and that will never happen. I rose from my chair. Enjoy your meal. It's already paid for. As I stepped away, he called after me. You think you've won, but this isn't finished, Eleanor. I turned, calm. Actually, it ended the moment you decided I was nothing. You just didn't realize it then. 6 months after the acquisition, Phoenix Energy was thriving. We had retained 92% of Horizon's strongest employees and fostered a healthier, more supportive work culture. Our client list had grown beyond energy into broader sustainability work. Rajan's breakthroughs were drawing industry praise, and Vivin had transformed our operations into a model of precision. I barely thought about Garrison until Zora burst into my office one afternoon. You need to see this, she said, handing me her tablet. It was a trade publication announcing Garrison's new firm, Reed Innovations, focused suspiciously close to Phoenix Energy's core mission. The article quoted him directly. I'm re-entering the sector with lessons gained from watching others try to fill the gap left by my exit from Horizon. I returned the tablet to Zora. Keep an eye on this, but I'm not worried. He's clearly aiming at us, she noted. Yes, I said. And he'll fail because he still hasn't learned the right lesson. A week later, another email arrived from Garrison. This one included only a press release draft, stating that Reed Innovations had secured funding from a major investment group known for hostile acquisitions. I forwarded it to Vivin with a simple instruction: activate Contingency Plan Delta. Within hours, our legal team had filed proactive protections for our intellectual property. Our PR division contacted key reporters to spotlight our upcoming advancements, and I personally phoned each major client to reaffirm our commitments. 2 days later, I called a company-wide meeting. Some of you may have heard that Garrison Reed is attempting to re-enter our market space, I began. I want to address this openly because transparency remains one of our core principles. The room fell completely silent. Everyone's attention sharpened instantly. Garrison still believes business is about dominance and control. His new venture is founded on the same mindset that left Horizon exposed, valuing ego above progress, rivalry above cooperation, and profit above purpose. I advanced to the next slide, displaying our growth figures since the acquisition. Phoenix Energy exists because we believe in a better path. We've demonstrated that showing people respect, paying attention to clients' needs, and prioritizing sustainable solutions creates far more value than the old approach ever did. I scanned the room, taking in the faces of those who chose to build something new, something stronger. Garrison is clinging to the past, trying to resurrect what he lost. We're looking ahead, and that difference is why we will keep succeeding while he struggles to gain footing. The applause that followed wasn't merely supportive, it was resolute. These weren't just employees, they were co-architects of a shared vision. 3 weeks later, the investment group that initially backed Garrison pulled their funding. Our contacts in the industry reported that after completing due diligence and speaking with former Horizon staff and clients, they grew uneasy about Garrison's leadership habits and operational behavior. The final chapter arrived unexpectedly. Harold Morris, who had indeed become a valuable member of our advisory board, requested a confidential meeting. "I have something you need to know," he said when we sat down. "Garrison has been approaching Phoenix employees, attempting to recruit them. He's targeting those who previously worked under Horizon, offering large signing bonuses." I nodded. "We're aware. No one took the offer." Harold blinked. "Not a single person?" "None," I affirmed, "but I appreciate the warning." He hesitated. "There's more. He reached out to me as well. Now he had my full attention. He wanted inside details about your operations, your strategy," he admitted. Harold looked ashamed. "He offered significant payment." "What did you tell him?" I asked, curious rather than alarmed. Harold straightened in his seat. "I told him I'd made enough mistakes by enabling his behavior once, and I wouldn't repeat that error with Phoenix." I smiled. "Thank you for choosing integrity, Harold. It's not loyalty," he said quietly. "It's finally choosing what's right." The following day, a hand-delivered envelope arrived. Inside was a short note from Garrison. "You win. I'm leaving the industry." I didn't reply. There was no reason to. This was never about winning for me. It was about building something meaningful while proving that success doesn't require abandoning ethics or self-respect. 1 year to the day after the coffee incident, I stood at a podium accepting an industry award for innovation. When I looked out across the audience, I saw the faces of those who had been part of my journey: Vivin, Rajan, Zora, Harold, and dozens of others who believed in a new kind of leadership. "This award celebrates innovation," I began. "But the true innovation at Phoenix Energy isn't only in our technology. It's in our philosophy of business itself. We've shown that listening is more powerful than commanding, that collaboration generates more worth than dominance, and that sometimes the most influential person in the room is the one no one paid attention to." I paused, glancing at the award in my hands. A year ago, someone insisted I was nothing but a worthless assistant. Today, I lead a company reshaping our entire field. The difference between then and now isn't that I suddenly became valuable. It's that I finally claimed the value I'd always possessed. The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who has ever been underestimated, ignored, or pushed aside. It was for everyone who knows they're capable of more than what others assume. As for Garrison Reed, I later heard he moved across the country and opened a small consulting practice. Sometimes I wonder if he ever grasped what truly happened, that his greatest failure wasn't the coffee he threw, but his inability to recognize the potential in the people around him. I never sent him that cleaning bill, by the way. Some debts can't be measured in money, and some victories don't need to be flaunted to be complete. If you've stayed with my story this far, thank you. Maybe you've been underestimated too. Maybe you're biding your time, building something quietly, while others overlook your abilities. Remember this: being underestimated is a gift if you know how to use it. Those who don't see your worth won't see you coming until it's far too late. If this story spoke to you, please hit the like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of their value, and leave a comment about a time you were underestimated. I read every one of them, because unlike some people, I know that every voice matters, especially the ones others try to silence.